Praise the Lord this morning, everybody. Hallelujah. My scripture today is coming from Psalms 34 that says, I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord, and the humble shall hear of it and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. So I will bless the Lord at all times, no matter what's going on, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, no matter what others say. I will bless the Lord. I will continue to say good things about the Lord. For the Lord is good. For God is always doing good things. So I will bless the Lord at all times. Hallelujah. And his praise will continue to be in my mouth. Hallelujah. Lord, I come to you this morning thanking you, Lord, and praising you, God, for who you are, for what you have done, what you are going to do, what you will do, Lord God. I come to lift you up this morning above my problems, above my situations, Lord God, because I know that you are the one that knows how to handle it, Lord God. And Lord, I give it to you today, saying, have your way in this place today, Lord God. Have your way. Help us to get our hearts together. Help us to submit our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, Lord God, our spirit to you today, that you will work and do what you need to do in us, Lord God. That we will be able, Lord God, to go and tell people even more about our God, who our God is, what our God can do, if you just give your heart to him. Lord, we thank you, Lord God, for this is the day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it today, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord God. So let us forget about ourselves. Concentrate on you today so we can praise you, Lord God, so we can give you the praise that you love, Lord God, in the name of Jesus. So we thank you, Lord God, and help us to hear, Lord God, what you have to say to us today in Jesus' name. So praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. At this time, we're going to get ready for our affirmation, for our vision and our mission.
Amen.
Okay. So our vision is to be the best trained and evangelistic center in the world. Our mission, Center of Attraction, exists for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus through worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. And what kind of place is this? A progressive and prosperous place. A place of worship to our God. A place of Christian discipline, an apostolic and prophetic place. A place of community and international outreach. A place exploding in growth. And what did Jesus say in John 12 and 32? If I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. So what are we going to do in here today? Lift them up, lift them up, lift Jesus up. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord God. Hallelujah, Lord. We thank you today, Lord God. We praise you today, Lord God. We give you the glory today. We give you the honor today, Lord God. We thank you, Lord God, for allowing us to see a new day, a new Sunday that we never saw before, Lord God. And because of that, Lord God, we got to get ready for our praise team to come. So let's get ready to praise God. Just praise Him like He wants the praise. Don't look around to see who's sitting next to you. You just praise God today in Jesus' name, okay? Because He's the one that deserves it. Hallelujah.
God is good. Hallelujah. We praise His name. We lift your name on high, Jesus. We honor you, Lord. Thank you so much. We're going to lift you up. We're going to lift you up. Said if you be lifted up into you. Said if you be lifted up into you. Said if you be lifted up into you.
Yes, it is.
For
Forever.
as high as the heavens above.
Great is the measure.
So
Great is the measure of my Father's love.
Great is his measure.
Great is the measure of my Father's love.
Great to that which needs our faith, to hold on to you and not let go. Oh God, we cry out to you and you alone, because your eyes are upon us, the righteous, and your ears are open to our cry. You're teaching us to overcome what overwhelms us. Lord, with your help we can. And with your help we will. Because he lives, I can face today and tomorrow. Oh, I love him today. Receive his peace. Father, we receive your peace. Say, I receive your peace. Say it. I receive your joy and your love. I receive you anew and afresh. I dedicate myself to you anew and afresh. Have your way with me today. Get the glory out of my life. I give you a new yes. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. No matter what, yes, Lord. No matter the evil report, yes, Lord. No matter what the doctors have said, yes, Lord. What the courts have said, yes, Lord. Oh God. Hallelujah. Oh God. Oh God. We love you today. Yes, Lord. Yes, God. We give you the praise. Hallelujah. Because he lives. Stay in his presence. I can face. Yes. I can face tomorrow. Because he lives. Our fear. Our fear. Our fear is gone. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. 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 No more fear. Say it. No more fear. No more fear. I can put my trust in you. No more fear. I put my trust in you. We cast fear out. Go down. Leave the mind. Leave the emotions and soul right now. In the name of Jesus. Thank you, praise team. Hallelujah. Ask our moderator to come back up.
Pray about everything. Don't worry about anything. Come on, saints. Let's begin to pray more.
Pray about everything and don't worry about anything. Thank you, Jesus.
We thank the Lord regardless. We thank God in spite of. I'm glad you pressed your way here in the house. How many had to press to get here? Don't raise your hand, Mother Baker. We already know. Let me see them hands again. You pressed to get here. Look. Because he lives.
Yes. Hallelujah.
No matter what. Come on now. Come on now. You don't know what prophetess and I go through. But we have to press just like you have to press.
I believe you, Lord.
Hallelujah. We're going to fly anyway. We're going to take on eagle's wings. We're going to fly anyway. Hallelujah. I believe God. Say it. I believe God. I believe God. I believe God. In spite of, regardless, no matter what, I believe God. Hallelujah. 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 I don't understand. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to be done, but we're standing. How many standing today? I'm standing. I'm standing on the promises of God. Let me declare and prophesy over you that we're going through, we're going to get to the promise. We're going to get to the promise. Have faith in God.
Yes.
Have the God kind of faith now. It is well with our soul. Everywhere I was turning the last couple of weeks, prophetess, I was seeing messages from God on TV, except for this young lady. I went to the store. She had a tattoo, "It is well." I received it as another message from the Lord. It's well, James. No matter what you're going through and facing, it's still well. Amen. It is well with my soul. Come on and confess that. It's well with my soul. The mind, will, and emotions, that's your soul, is well with my soul. Say it, is well with my soul. So why am I asking you to say it? Because faith comes by hearing. And when you speak it, you're hearing yourself. It begins to loop itself in your system, in your belief system. Amen. That no environment, no body, your body, no environment, no person, no matter how close or far they are, that nothing will separate you from the love of God. And you're going to believe God regardless and no matter what. Amen. Hallelujah. Whose report you going to believe? I'm believing the report of the Lord. Whatever that report says, if I'm healed, I'm healed. If I'm set free, then I'm set free. Amen. If it says that I can have peace that passes all understanding, I got it now. If it says that the joy of the Lord is my strength, I'm going to muster up some joy somehow, some way. Amen. Because I know that's how I get supernatural strength. Amen. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the gym. I'm not saying you shouldn't do your walks and your exercise to get strength. But there is a strength that's beyond the dimension and the domain of the natural, and it is supernatural. And I'm here to tell you today, joy brings strength. Aren't you glad you're in the environment of joy? Strength has come to us this morning. Amen, saints. We're going to move on in our service. We trust that. Thank you, praise to you. Thank you. Amen. For getting us here. Amen. In the presence of the Lord. The Bible says in the presence of the Lord, there's fullness of what? Hallelujah. And his right hand what? Pleasures forevermore. So you see the sequence. I come into his presence. I get happy. Amen. And before I go, the Lord said, hold up. What you want? At his right hand, there are pleasures. The first pleasure, as the Lord, let me testify quickly, and the Lord said to me all last week, son, my hand is upon you. I said, thank you, Lord. I'm sure you'll explain that as we go on. And he said it again the next day, and he said it 2 or 3 days later after that. Amen. The Lord's hand is upon us. At his right hand, there's pleasures forevermore. It's just like you are blessed by the Lord as he touches you. And with that touch, he claims and says, you belong to me. Come here, brother. You belong. What do you want? Amen. Peter, don't direct the children away from me. Bid them to come. And one gospel said that he put the child on his lap and began to teach about childlike faith. Amen. I want you to begin to picture yourself in the bosom of God, in the bosom of Christ, and that he's doing this to you. He's not pushing you away. He's doing this to you. Come on, baby. Come on. Visualize that now as he embraces you. It's going to be all right. I know that we've been living in a world, and sometimes your personal experience has been one of rejection. The truth is that I always wanted a father's love, but never got it. Because my father wasn't there, and when he was there, he didn't have the capacity to embrace me. See, the reason that men and women get into alternate lifestyles, maybe it's because we did not receive a genuine kiss, a genuine touch. I kiss my boy sometimes. I kiss my son on the forehead. How you doing, son? And I kiss him. It's the touch. And so even though I haven't received the natural father's touch, you must enter into his presence. And this touch is beyond natural. He touches you and kisses you on the inside. It's an eternal kiss. And it never leaves you. Come into his presence with singing, to his gates with thanksgiving, his courts with praise. In his presence there's joy, at his right hand pleasures forevermore. Let me finally say this to you. The Lord is pleased with you. Say it. The Lord is pleased with me. You see, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to demonstrate. You don't have to perform before the Lord. You hear me, Eris? This is a message for you as well. You don't need to perform. The Lord takes pleasure in you. You don't have to be a perfect mom, a perfect grandparent. You hear me? You don't have to be a perfect husband or wife. I know we live in a world of performance. What are you going to do for me? And what do I expect from you? This give and take world that we're in. And Jesus says, you belong to me. This is the message I want to bring to you from the heartbeat of God himself. You belong to him. And you please him. This is why he wakes you up every morning and say, all right, my baby is up. Okay, what we going to do today? He loves to see us live, not broken and depressed and sick and bent over and whining and complaining and fearful. Look on the inside, he says, baby. I'm here. I haven't left you. It's okay. And when we have sinned and we beat ourselves up, we plunger our image. He's right there to say, I've already forgiven you. Why are you still at it? Come. If you would allow me, and I know we're moving on, I have to seal this time because I know the Lord has been speaking to you. A father's touch. I can't take the place of your father. I cannot take the place of your heavenly Father. But I want to stand in proxy and anoint you with oil. And I want to say over you, the Lord is pleased with you. Life is already a mess. We don't have to we beat ourselves up before life beats us up. I want y'all to know, Eris and the rest of y'all, the reason for worship is so that we can go up. Now we have gone up, and the Father is speaking about his love to us. And I hear the Lord saying, enough of you beating yourself up. I love you. You're mine. You belong to me. I think we sing a song like that. I forget the name of the song. That's you. We're not looking for numbers or don't want to embarrass you. The oil represents the Holy Spirit. It's a symbol representing his presence. And I just want to anoint you with my right hand, because at the Lord's right hand in song, there's pleasure. Some of us have allowed the life we live, so-called live, we're walking zombies. But that life has taken your breath from you. You just live day by day, just barely making it every day. That is not the will of God. I was talking to one of these teenagers the other day, and she was showing me all of her teeth. And I said, wow. She just brightened up and brightened me up. We've lost our smile, some of us, because we're thinking about all of these things that we have to face. These things that make demands on us all the time. That's why we came to the altar to cast these cares on him. You have to do that. We had a disturbing text message the other day of a young lady that some of you may know. And she is so troubled about her life. And we prayed against suicide, and we prayed against death. Actually decreed against that. Don't get to the place, don't ever get to that place where the life God gives you, you want to take. Because life is worth the living. Say it. Life is worth, there's value in your living. We need you. God needs you most. As you come up, I'm just going to lay hands on you. This is what listen to me. Okay, I used to be a preacher of sensationalism. And we do all kinds of acts and performances and just sensationalism. Y'all know that concept? You understand that concept? I am directed by the Father himself to do this. When I touch you, feel the touch of the Father. Come now. Would you play something softly, please? The Father's touch has come quickly. The Lord is pleased. Love of the Father. Thank you, Father, for your love today in Jesus' name.
Praise the Lord. God is a good God. When Apostle was up here talking, I really heard the Father's voice. Praise the Lord. And it's our body ministry. And ministers, you know what you're supposed to be doing. But if there's anyone that heard a word for this ministry today that haven't been doing this, you can write it down and send it up into the pulpit so it can be judged and maybe released. So ministers, you heard a word from the Lord, you can come at this time.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hallelujah. Lord.
Hallelujah, Jesus.
Praise God. The word of faith that came forth. God says, the faith that you have now received today is like the fountain, the ever-flowing fountain, ever-replenishing fountain that will be installed in your spirit. And God says, as you have exercised your faith, God will release the blessings to you.
I just heard that verse being said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life, John 3:16. And I just heard the Lord saying, don't you want everlasting life? Receive everlasting life. Receive everlasting life.
I heard this song when I was sitting there. It just kept coming back to me. Don't you worry or be discouraged when things don't go your way. Just remember, it's the will of God concerning you. It is the will of God concerning you. Don't you worry or be discouraged when things don't go your way. Just remember, it's the will of God concerning you.
Yes, Lord. Yes, thank you, Lord.
It is the will of God concerning you. It's all in God's hands. It's all in God's hands. Whatever the problem, it's all in God's hands. It's He will fix it. He will fix it for you.
Good morning. As I was sitting there just listening, and I heard 1 Timothy 6:12, fight the good fight of faith, lay hold unto eternal life, whereunto thou art also called, and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses. Then I also heard what came to me, even through this week. I was trying to understand how to standing. And I heard the Lord say to me, and I just want to share this, stay in the press. Get in the press. He said, get in the press. And then what came to me was Philippians 3:14. It says, I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. And what I want to say to you all today is continue to press, get in the press. We're in the press for Jesus. We're in the press for the mark of the high call of God. So don't stop pressing. Get in the press. See, sometimes when we don't get in the press, we feel like we're in press. We're being pressed. But if you get in the press, God will show you how to move in the press. He will take you through the press. He will take you to the place that He wants you to be. So just stay in the press. Continue to press forward in this season. Amen. Amen.
Praise the Lord. As we were singing the last song about walking with Jesus, I saw the Emmaus Road and the believers following behind God, behind Jesus, as He was opening the scripture. And Luke 24:32 said, and they said one to another, did not our heart burn within us while He taught with us by the way, and while He opened to us the scripture? The Holy Spirit said, as we walk in fellowship with God, Jesus will open up the scriptures by His Spirit and begin to pour into us, and we'll begin to blossom. And as we blossom and grow, we are drawing other people to the Word and extending the kingdom. So don't fail to assemble yourself and walk with Jesus every day and allow Him to open up the scriptures to our hearts.
Okay. And this is what I heard. I heard this when Apostle James was talking. And it says, there is nobody like Jesus. There is nobody like Jesus. Your peace, your joy, your strength, your hope, and your love. Everything you need. There is nobody like Jesus. There's nobody like Jesus. He's your peace, your strength, your hope, your love, everything you need. That's who your Jesus is. Everything you need. There is nobody like Him. Praise the Lord. Well, anyway, at this time is believe it's offering time. So, if you need an envelope, you can raise your hands, and the ushers will assist you. Okay, and at the meantime, we're going to read our offering affirmation. No, we're going to do our scripture, and then afterwards we'll do our affirmation. And our scripture is coming from Malachi chapter 3, starting at verse 8. It says, "Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, in what way have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open for you the windows of heaven, and pour out for you such blessings, that there will not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sake, so that he will not destroy the fruit of your ground, nor shall the vine fail to bear fruit for you in the field, says the Lord of hosts." Can everybody stand, please? We're going to do our offering affirmation. Oh, okay. Today is the first Sunday. We got our pastor's offering today too. The left hand for the pastor's offering, and her right hand is our regular tithes and offering. Okay, our offering affirmation. As we give our tithes and offerings, we are believing you, Lord, for jobs and better jobs, raises and bonuses, benefits, sales and commissions, estates and inheritance, interest and income, rebates and returns, checks in the mail, healing and divine help, gifts and surprises, finding money, bills paid off, settlements, debts demolished, royalties received, scholarships and grants, contracts, money management, 100-fold return, according to your word, in Jesus' name. You can be led by the ushers, please.
My strength, whenever I am weak, my hope is everything.
They gave, Lord God, every heart that desired but had not at this time. We thank you, Lord God, that through this offering, Lord God, that the ministry will grow in the name of Jesus, Lord God. For those that don't know you, Lord God, we thank you, Lord God, in Jesus' name, as we give this offering up to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. I believe it's our announcements. Oh, that's what we're first. So we can do our announcements at this time.
Praise the Lord. These are our announcements. Supernatural Sunday today at 6:30. Invite others. Understanding Visions and Dreams 2, November 15th and 17th. Apostle speaks at Royal Priesthood Ministries Sunday, the 24th at 4 p.m. Prophetess will be speaking at Redeemed Ministries Saturday, November 30th at 9 a.m. invite family and friends to Center of Attraction. Do we have any November birthdays or anniversaries? Amen. Sister Joanne, you in the house and you didn't even stand up, really?
She raised her hand.
Gabby? Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, everybody. Happy birthday to you. Amen. Do we have any first-time visitors in our house today? Amen. Amen. Welcome. We're glad you came to worship with us today. Amen. We're back in the hands of pulpit.
Okay, at this time we're going to get ready for our pastor to come with the word. But the nursery, do we have anybody for the nursery day? Okay, the nursery is ready. Okay, our pastor with the word. Okay, praise the Lord. God, Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, Lord God, for our pastor today. We thank you for the word that is coming now, Heavenly Father, to further us further in the ministry, Lord God. We thank you for this word. Help us to receive it, Lord God. In Jesus' name, and we bless our pastor, Lord God. We thank you for your strength. We thank you for your joy and your love for over him. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Well, give the Lord a hand clap for all the things he's done. Hallelujah. Praise God. We thank God. We certainly do. We thank God for our guests here today. And Joanne's mom is here. So glad to see you, Mother. Bless you. All family is here. So we thank God for you today. Just as a note for tonight, this is our last Supernatural Sunday. We will not have it in December. This is it. So certainly come out and support. This is the opportunity to bring friends. Let me say this to you, that 2/3 of this side of the church is here because of one person, Tina, who came one day at the prophetic encounter service at that time, sitting like in the third row back, and we had a conversation, and one thing led to another, and now we're full of Flintstones, and this is a wonderful opportunity, you see, for you to come and for you to bring others with you, okay? This is how it's going to happen for tonight. We had a guest, and the speaker spoke to me. He had a stroke. He could not make it. And so we've, please lift him up. And I don't know if he wants his name mentioned, but just kind of remember him in prayer, okay? But yours truly will be ministering, as well as prophetess. We're going to bring some brief messages, and then we're going to have a sit-down table talk with you. Amen. And you can ask the pastor, and from that vantage point, and then we'll answer as the Lord permits. Okay. Amen. And so we're going to have a good time, and remember, and please govern the announcements as well. We do have some activities and actions happening this month, and with us speaking, we certainly thank God for your support all the time. And let me say this, it is a joy to us to look out in the audience when we're speaking and we have support. If anybody ever been in that kind of situation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you for supporting your pastors and making the sacrifice to do so, okay? Because you'll see your pastors in a different light, and you'll also receive some revelations and some truths as well. Amen? Amen. Father, we ask your grace over this word we're about to share to your people, that they will have a listening ear to hear now what you have to say to us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. We want to talk about relationships. Say it, relationship. This is important because we are social creatures, and with that being said, we are not by ourselves. And one man is not an island. One man does not walk alone. We walk with others, and therefore we have a family, an extended family, a society, a cell of families all together in this body called humanity. And with that being said, the significance of how we relate to each other is vitally important. But there is a relation order that I want to talk about. And I trust that with this relation order that I share with you today, that you would use that not only in your personal family and domain, but also in the house of the living God. We are teams, we are sub-teams, we are teams that interchange with other teams, and we need to understand that a team is those two or more people that's working together towards a common goal. Yes. That's what a team is. A team is not a group, okay? There's no teams out at the mall today, okay? There are groups of people shopping. There's not a team, all right? They don't gather together in the central atrium and begin to, okay, what store you going to, how long it's going to take, let's all rendezvous and come back here at such a time. We all have a goal and we need to meet that goal. No, these are groups of people all going in their own special way and direction. The Church of the Living God, particularly COA, is not a group of people. We are a team. Amen. Yes. All right, and this is how I want to bring it. Now, of course, we're also family, but we're a team, which means, again, in definition form, we are two or more people working together towards a common goal, a common mission. This is why every Sunday we remind ourselves of what the affirmation is for our house, our vision, our mission. Amen. And when we have our business meetings, what our goals are and what we want to accomplish. You don't want to go and attend a church that isn't accomplishing anything, not growing. Amen. And we are a team, and if a part of the goal of the team is to bring others of like faith and like-mindedness to the house of the Lord, then it is incumbent upon you to do so. It is not upon the pastor's job and duty to do so. It is each and every link in the chain to make the link larger, so to speak. Amen. And to bring those together that's going to be cohesive, cooperative in the effort of accomplishing the mission of this house. We are a mission on the move, and we are people on the move. It is imperative then that we fill the seats of this house and feel the heartbeat of your pastor's heart. So we're talking about relationship, and let me say this again and reiterate that one man is not an island unto himself. One man never walks alone. The truth be said, you're here because of some others. You're not here because of you alone. You're here because of others. The steps you have taken, others have taken before you. You must realize that the way you're going, others have already gone that way. Yeah. The life we live is by the life of others. Let me say that again. The life you live now is due and because of the life of others. We belong to each other. Yes. Yes. Whether by blood or by space or by time or by generation or belief system, nationality, the whole human construct and connection. Yes. It has been and always will be we the people. I know some folk have forgotten that line, but it's still we the people. Yes. Say it, we the people. You can't just say, well, Apostle James and the prophetess Leon, and center of attraction. No, all of us together, we're on the same ship, the fellowship. We the people. Your life must mean something to you before it means something to me. Your life must not only be relative, but relational. We the people. So we the people brings to my mind a very important document, you know where I'm going, that framed the course of governing order for these United States. It's the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of the United States. It begins, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We must realize that relationship is a major building block of life. Say a major building block. A major building block of life. How you relate and the direction of your relation will determine how successful you are with God and men. So it begs me sharing this again. How you relate and the direction of your relation will determine how successful you are with God and man. So now let's talk about relation direction. Relation direction. It goes like this: upward, inward, outward. Help me now. Upward, inward, outward. Upward, inward, and outward. Let's talk about upward. The relationship we have with God is one of worship. We engaged in some of that today. And praise, prayer, and obedience. Now, if we want to have a relationship upward with God, we must understand our placement, our position. God is supreme. He's in control of everything. He's a God of order. He's all wise, all knowing, all powerful. And I am and you are his creation. We're going to get that right. Amen. Another order that we remember in John chapter 15, Jesus is speaking to his disciples and he's saying, I want to give you life. I am the life source. I am the vine. You are the branch. And when you read John 15, he says it over and over again so it can be established by these coconuts that he is the vine, we are the branch. Let's not get that twisted. Let's not get that all mixed up. Our relation with God is upward first, not inward first. I know we live in a society where it's all about me, myself, and I. God is in me. I begin to do mantras. I begin to do things to bring the God up out of me and to bring me to a place of nirvana and a place of peace and etc. I do that by reaching within me first, because all that I am lies within me right now. And I know you hear preachers preaching on that same subject, but be careful that you get this relation order right. Come on. That it is God upward. He's still in heaven. Where is heaven? Up. I begin to direct my faith and my life upward first to God. God is not in me first. God is up in heaven first. I bring him in me as I do so by and through my faith in Jesus Christ. Now God is in me. It's not in me first if I never asked him to come in me. You understand me now? But the kind of philosophy and ideologies that we're living in today gets this all mixed up. So with my upward direction to God, it is not about me, it's all about Him. Our very Savior in the Garden of Gethsemane said, not my will. Humanity always struggled. Let me tell you, I don't care how perfect you think you are, how holy and righteous and spiritual you think you are, the battle every day is going to be either God's will or your will. And it is so sneaky, you may still think you're doing God's will, but in your walk, as we did in expression form, as we walk throughout the sanctuary today, as walking with God, it's not about us, it's about God. But here's the point. The struggle of the wheels continue. This is a saga with no end. This is a series with no completion. We're going to always be struggling with the wheel. But the struggle has to diminish over time. You can't keep walking with God still struggling over the same thing. And so it's imperative that we keep looking upward, trusting the Lord with all of my heart, leaning not to my own understanding. In all my ways, I'm acknowledging Him so that He can direct my path. As my wife knows, I had certain plans about indebtedness, getting out of debt, and so on and so forth. And so, some things happened which I believe God allowed, because I came out of that, and God basically was saying to me, James, my ways are still higher than yours. My thoughts are still above your thoughts. And I thought this was the plan of God. And God says, I got a plan you're not aware of. Trust me in the plan. We got to trust God. We got to always present, there it is, Paul, my body, Romans 12:2, put that up there, as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto Him, which is my reasonable service. I'm going to present myself, say it, verse 1. I'm going to present myself. I'm going to present myself. I'm going to present my body. I'm going to present my mind. I'm going to present my plans to God. I'm going to keep checking in to the supernatural check and balance system of God Yahweh Himself. I'm going to keep getting the checkup, and it ain't going to be an annual one. I'm going to come before Him every day, present my body as a living sacrifice every day. I'm going to present myself to Him every day. Somebody say every day. Not give me this year my daily bread. Give me today my daily bread. It's upward. Redemption comes from above. Salvation comes from above. Being born again. This is what the scripture says. Amen. Hallelujah. Jesus says it in John 3. That which is born of flesh is flesh. That which is born of spirit is spirit. You must be born again, Nicodemus. Better translation, you must be born from above. Hallelujah, saints. And so redemption and healing comes from God, comes from above. And then what does God require? God requires us to obey Him, to submit to Him, to surrender our life to Him. Not when it's pleasing, or not when you're in some drastic, some situation that is life-threatening, you begin to call on Jesus. This is a relationship, which infers a daily walk with Him. Somebody say upward. Upward. That's the first relation direction. The second then is inward, because now we're talking about relationship with self. Relationship with self. If I call on God to come and rule my life, to be my Savior and Lord, he is in me, and now God begins to show me. Because every time God shows up on any scene or on any front, he comes with light. Light infers, represents illumination, revelation, discoveries, mysteries unfold and untold. Light comes to dispel darkness. When God comes into our life, the darkness flees. Some flees faster than others, but darkness will flee. So now he teaches me how to relate with self. Self-awareness, self-worth, self-development. My mind, my body, my soul, my spirit most of all. Are y'all hearing me now? Yes. I can't relate to you before I relate to me first. I must relate to me first. In the light and truth of God and Scripture. You get me now? All right. So I'm not into the self-help things of life, okay? And there are some wonderful developmental tools to help yourself. But outside of God is short-lived, okay? And so when I'm talking about in the light of God and truth, you begin to see yourself. Self-awareness, self-worth. You were deprived. You were not considered privileged. You were the black sheep of the family twice over. Okay, you read between the lines there. Yes, amen. Because there's discrimination in every nationality. Amen.
Every nationality.
Hallelujah. The fair-skinned slaves were in the house. The darker-skinned slaves was out in the field. And began a combativeness within our own race and society. Y'all hear me now? It still exists today. Hallelujah. I am shocked that even the marketplaces now begins to bring about, and just forgive me, the most blackest of models to show in magazines and such like. Maybe you're trying to prove a point. All right. But be it as it may, history has not been so kind to color. Okay? And has not been too kind to obesity and fluffiness and girth. Society has not been kind to those who are more nappier than others. Those that when we grew up in black culture, you have a little straightness in your hair. You must have some Indian in you. You got some Indian in you. And they make these little phony bangs with royal, what do you call that grease? Royal crown, you know, and you have a little bang system going across You're so skinny that they say, girl, if you turn to the side, I'll miss you. You're not as smart as your older son, your older brother, excuse me, or sister. There's always something to pit one against the other. You're poor. And the truth is, in some culture, you never knew you were poor. Until you start seeing beyond your community. And you looked at yourself and say, you know what, we struggling. But there was always food on the table. Amen. And if there was any gift, the majority of black families have a sewing machine somewhere. They will sew something together for you. You look just like you just came from J.C. Penney store. I'm trying to take you somewhere. I'm trying to let you know all the pits and the points that society, with the help of the diabolicalness of Satan, to cause you to devalue yourself because of how you look, because of your social economic system that you're faced with every day, or because you never had a clean face, you had pimples, you now even got adult pimples, you just can't get away. So there's something we're struggling with, and God comes in on the scene and says, baby, I love you just the way you are. And we begin to fight with God. How can you love somebody like me? I don't like my eyes, my thighs, my lips, my hips, my nose, or my toes. I don't like none of it. I struggle with my sexuality. I know I look like a man, and I should be desiring women, but I desire a man. How can you love me, God? You understand? That in the vulnerability of our life, something came in to destroy our image. And now we play it out. But God comes into our life and He begins to clean it up. He begins to straighten it out. He begins to add what's been subtracted from you. He begins to pour His grace on. Let me tell you something. I never knew a father's love until I came to God. I never knew a father's love. Now, God the Father can be also mother-like, which means He has sensitive qualities. He's patient, He's nurturing, He's long-suffering, etc. So, you can't say, well, God, you don't understand what it means to be motherless. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He's the creator of mothers. How can you say He doesn't understand motherhood? He created moms and dads. You don't understand. I'm just 10 years old. You don't. Let me tell you, He came down, Philippians chapter 2, disrobed Himself to become like man. And grew up. He didn't come in a dove. He said, I want to experience every year, every day of every year. You can be 10 years old and God understands, Jesus more particularly. So it's upward, it's inward, where now God begins to show you how great you are, how wonderful and fearful you have been made. Tina, there's nobody like you. And her family said, thank God. Thank God, one Tina is enough. One Tina is all it takes. You take Tina away from her environment becomes disarrayed, out of sorts, etc. Why? Her significance. Take you away. This is why a spousal relationship is important. This is why your children are important. Listen to me close. This is why your brother and your sister are important. Why do you think the devil wants to put malice in your heart? And put unforgiveness in you against your brothers, against your parents? because of this entire relational situation. Because you can't move into outward. Because you have too much malice, envy, strife, unforgiveness inside of you. Therefore, you have no life to give to anyone else because you are lifeless. But God comes to heal. I forgave my father a long time ago. I knew I had to cross that line to get to a better life for me. Because unforgiveness keeps people in the way of your destiny path. You get them out the way by forgiving them. You put, some folk you got to put behind you, Satan, get behind me. The memory, the pain, the hurt. You were sexually abused. You were verbally abused. The life you thought you had in your innocency was taken from you. I can't forgive that. You must forgive in order to live. You must forgive your father. You must forgive your mother and your brother and your sister and that no good uncle. You must forgive them so you can move on in a healthy way. God comes in to heal the brokenhearted. Now you can breathe. Now you can see clearly now. The rain is gone, so to speak. Now you can live. The fear is gone. The ball and chain is gone. You can be free. You don't have to always second guess yourself. Did I say the right thing? Did I, stay away from people that you have to walk on eggshells with. You don't know if you should speak or not speak, or, should I hug you or shake your hand? Should I bow or curtsy? What should I do? And because a man abused you or a woman abused you, now you hate all men and you hate all women. So tell me, how are you going to relate if you're married? How are you going to relate at work? How are you going to relate in church? You say no amen when the apostle come in. Let prophetess say something. You shout and roll on the floor. You done knocked off Mother Baker's hat. You done did it all. Why are y'all laughing? Because it's true. Here's Apostle. He's up here. What he's got to say? All these men, all they want is one thing. That's all they want. It's in your mind. It's in your mind. Then it begins to flow in your body, and you begin to respond certain ways. Enough on inward. Can we move on? Did I make you uncomfortable? The truth shall make you free. The truth will make us free. I'm ever learning coming to the truth. I'm ever learning coming to the truth. When I first got married to this woman, I thought I loved her. I did not. I tolerated her. Because I wanted a perfect wife, and this is the perfect wife I wanted. I wanted her look to be a certain way. I wanted her behavior to be a certain way. I wanted her to respond to me a certain way. Somebody say young love. Young love. Okay, you can bleep me out if you want. Young love ain't true love. Young love is puppy love. Y'all know what that term means. She licks you, you lick her. Puppy love. She tastes good, he tastes good. Puppy love, now get what I'm saying. Puppy love is what you can get out of the relationship one to another. That's what puppy love means. But not until I got to know her through experience and suffering and pain. I looked at her different. I said, wow, I really love this woman. Regardless of my expectation, because love supersedes expectation. The love of God will change your definition of certain terms. So I love every part, every bit of her. I love every side of her. I love the things that I don't like of her. I'm getting deep here. Because there's some things she doesn't like about me. She would appreciate a little bit more hair, but I told her I can't. I told you I can't. It's gone forever. It will never return. You're going to stop loving your spouse because they now don't have all their teeth and they're putting in extra teeth? They become sick, they lose their hair, they got a cane now, they can't, what you going to do? Love covers a multitude of humanity. And if you're looking at the world, if you're looking at Hollywood to define love, you already screwed up before you stepped into any relationship. So the parts I don't like about her, and I'm talking about emotion and responses parts, is what I mean. Certain behaviors, and she doesn't like certain behaviors of mine. Young people, those ready to get married or whatever, listen, when tough stuff happens, the tough keeps going. People separate and get divorced over the most silliest of things.
Silly stuff. Come on.
Can I move on now?
Yes. Man.
All right, give me about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm done. Outward, the relationship with others, family members, friends, associates, community, the world. Listen to me. You cannot relate to anyone outside of your family if you can't relate to your family. Relate properly. Relate in love. Relate in patience. Giving and forgiving. That's right. Relate in kindness and consideration. See? Because what you learn in private, you can then demonstrate with confidence in public. Thank you. So the order is upward to God. God comes into my life now he begins to show me who I am, whose I am, what I can become. He begins to value me up. He begins to put worth back in me again, bring clarity, bring purpose and design to me. Now I am a better brother. We're talking about outward. I'm a better sister, you might say. I'm a better father. I'm a better, you see. And let me say this to you. Let me say this. You may ask, how long is the inward relationship program that God has for me? It's going to last all your life. Because as I said, only as an example, I could talk to you about fatherhood the same way. I started out thinking this is what a father should do. And I don't think grandparents become true fathers and mothers until they're grandparents. Then the true father come out of you. And your son looks at you and like, who is this? This is not my father. Who art on earth, holy is thy name. But we find because of the inner healing, here comes now the outward.
That's true.
So how are you acting in your family? How are you behaving? How are you living? I remember the first time I asked my wife to forgive me because that was very foreign to me. I don't say that. Forgive me. I don't say that. This was back in the late 70s. And the Lord had to teach me how to forgive. So we said something, we're at odds. I'm in bed. I'm trying to go to sleep. Holy Ghost whooping them. You're going to get up and you're going to beg your pardon and you're going to say why you need to forgive. I'm tossing back and forward. I'm fighting with the Holy Ghost. I'll just speak for you because none of y'all will say this, that you fight against God. And so I meandered into the bathroom. She's in the bathroom at the sink. And I'm messing with towels and stuff. Oh, it's a true story. True story. That's exactly what I did. She's in the mirror, you know, and I'm behind her. I said, honey, you forgive me for what I said to you. And I'm sure she acknowledged it and pardoned me. But wow. How I learned that lesson that day. What do you do with a friend that broke your trust? What do you do? A friend that's trying to hit on your wife. What you going to do? You have to find God. Would you say, Leon? You got to find God. What you going to do? No, that's not the answer. And I'm just giving an example. That's all. I'm just giving an example. This is not personal. I'm just giving you an example. I'm trying to walk with you right now. See? You have a daughter that just cussed you out on the phone. The one you have given most of your money to, your time, your energy, etc. The one that is the most, should have been somebody else's child. Should have been somebody else's child. But she made a demand on you, and you said to her, now you know I can't do that. Well, she begins to, call you out your name. and then hang up on you. You have a relationship with God, and you have a secure confidence of who you are to handle situations and episodes like that. Knee-jerk reaction? No. And you begin to pray in the Holy Ghost. You begin to consult the Lord. I've been in situations, I'm telling you. Thank you, Lord, right now, because you know. I've been in situations, and I made up my mind what I was going to do. And I said, God, I'm talking to God about it. And God begins to talk to me back. And he begins to remind me of scriptures I forgot. And he begins to show me, if you do this, here are the 3 or 4 outcomes. And I'm talking to him, but God can be very persuasive. And I'm glad I obeyed him, because my relationship with him upward is more important, listen closely, than my inward or my outward. If I mess this up, I'm messed up, and you. Stand to your feet, everybody. I did not have time to talk about, in further details, about this upward, inward, and outward. But I leave you with a scripture. My second scripture, I believe, Tracy, for today, Matthew 6:33. We're going to all read it together. We trust this has been a revelation, a wisdom point for you. Ready, read. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Say, I will seek God first. I will seek God first. Before I seek myself. Or seek the wishes of others. I will seek first God. See, his kingdom is his laws, his behavior. There is the laws of the kingdom, the behavior of the kingdom. What's my behavior going to be? With these examples I gave you, what should be the kingdom behavior? What should be the spirit I emanate? See? With this message, I think we all need to get saved all over again. How many need prayer based on this word today? Yeah. All right, I'll keep my hand up also. Keep that hand up. Father God, forgive us for any shortcomings. We declare your blood now, your blood to save us now. You know why we're raising our hands. Deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Forever. Amen. Amen. All right, please be seated. And those of you that need Jesus in your life, call on his name. You shall be saved. Find a church home and read your Bible every day. Pray every day. Let God bless you. We're signing off now. So we thank God for those of you who watched.